Before watching this video, it's recommended to watch our video, What is a Literature Review? Once you understand what a literature review is and what some of the goals of a literature review project are, this video will help you with synthesizing your sources, including how to pick out an organizational strategy for organizing your sources and your essay, and how to identify relationships between your sources. Synthesis is key to a literature review. Synthesis means to show your reader how your sources relate to one another, how they agree or disagree, how they build on top of or challenge one another's findings, or how they take different perspectives on the same topic. Picture the literature review as a transcript of a conversation, except none of the members of the conversation are actually talking directly to one another. Your job as the writer of the literature review is to take these seemingly unconnected bits of the transcript and build a coherent conversation out of them. That involves identifying relationships between your sources and then organizing and synthesizing them to show your reader how the sources contribute to this overall conversation. To identify relationships between your sources and plan the layout of the literature review essay, decide on an organizational strategy. An organizational strategy helps you group sources, figure out how to demonstrate relationships between those sources in the literature review, and how to structure the essay itself. There are several organizational strategies to pick from. Organizational strategies include thematic organization, chronological organization, and methodological organization. In chronological organization, for example, you organize your sources by date of publication. This strategy helps you show how our knowledge on a topic has progressed over time. In thematic organization, you identify several subtopics, themes, or trends that your sources discuss, and then organize them based on which of these subtopics they focus on. Each of these organizational strategies can be useful for achieving different goals. The specific needs and requirements of your assignment or project can help you determine which approach will be the best fit for your needs. Often, a thematic approach is a safe bet for getting started, even if it's not the one that you use in the final draft of your literature review. Thematic organization is the one we'll use in our example for this video. With a thematic approach, we'll start with our main research topic for our paper, and then as we read our sources, we'll identify several themes, trends, or subtopics that make up different components of the overall conversation our sources are having. So once you've decided on an organizational approach, the next step is to use that approach to identify connections between sources. Sometimes your sources will talk directly to one another, and the connection will be obvious. Other times your sources will appear to be talking around or past one another, and it's your job to figure out and write about the relationships between these sources. There are several tools you can use to identify the relationships between sources. One especially useful tool for organizing sources and visualizing connections is a synthesis matrix. There are a couple of different ways to use a synthesis matrix. One useful approach is the two-phase matrix approach. In this two-phase approach, we first use a matrix chart to take notes on our sources and identify important information. Then in the second phase, we use another matrix chart to identify relationships between our sources. The first phase happens early on in the process of writing the literature review. As you read and take notes on sources, keep track of key elements of information that you find in the source using a matrix chart. The overall goal is to be able to briefly summarize the big ideas from your sources. If your source is a research article, for example, you could make note of these important elements from your source, any theoretical or conceptual frameworks that the author uses, any research questions or hypotheses that they give us, the research methods they use to conduct their study, the results of the study, the implications that the authors argue the study has, and finally, any general trends, themes, or categorical groupings that you could use to label the source. If your source is any other kind of writing, like a newspaper article or a textbook, use these guidelines to figure out what kind of information you need to capture from the source for your summaries. In this example matrix, we have 5 sources we want to take notes on. We'll set up a 6x7 table. We've listed our sources down the leftmost column of our table. Across the top row, we've listed out each of those important elements we want to keep track of. As we read each source, we'll fill in the corresponding box for each of our key elements. This phase 1 of the synthesis matrix process can also help us when we need to summarize our sources in the literature review, since all of the important points we need to cover regarding our sources are recorded here. Then, to move from summary to synthesis, we'll start a second phase of the synthesis matrix process. In the left column, we will list out all of our sources again. In the top row, since we're using a thematic organizational strategy to organize the review, we'll list out the major themes, trends, or subtopics we identified across our sources in that last box of our phase 1 matrix. In this example, our topic is the use of service learning to teach writing classes. From reading our sources, we know that the subtopics, themes, or components that make up the discussion of our overall topic include student perspectives on service learning, the use of personal reflective writing in service learning, and finally, building community partnerships through service learning classes. In the header for each column of our matrix, we've listed out those themes or subtopics. Next, we'll simply place an X in each box to show which sources talk about which themes. Sometimes a source will only discuss one of the themes, and sometimes one source will discuss multiple themes at once. As we mark an X to indicate which themes the source discusses, we'll make note of anywhere we see that 2 or more sources get an X for the same theme. Anywhere 2 or more sources get that X on the same theme is an opportunity for synthesis by comparing and contrasting what each source says about that theme or subtopic. In these boxes, we could also include detailed notes about what each source has to say about this theme or topic, and we can even make note of specific relationships that this source has with others, such as whether it agrees or disagrees with another source on our list, or if it builds on or challenges the work of another source. Now, if we look at an outline of our literature review, we can see that these themes or subtopics we've identified become sections within the larger literature review. We have an introduction and conclusion paragraph to frame the review, then each body paragraph in the review falls under one of these themes we've identified. We can list our sources in the outline as well so we know where in the review we'll work with each of those sources. If we return to a sample paragraph that we wrote in the What is a Literature Review video, we can identify first why we chose to include these sources in this section. In our Phase 2 matrix, we noted that these 3 sources each talk about the subtopic of student perspectives on doing a service learning project, so we've grouped the sources into this one paragraph so that we can summarize what each one says about the subtopic and then synthesize their big ideas into one conversation in this section. Comparing to our Phase 1 matrix, we also see where we got the information we included in our summaries. Each of these sentences that are a summary are taken from the notes that we included in that Phase 1 matrix. Literature review assignments will have different goals, expectations, and requirements depending on things like your major, the type of literature review you're writing, and your instructor's specific requirements for the assignment. The organizational strategy that works best for you and your project may not be the same one that we used in this video here. Each strategy has its strengths, and your project may require you to think about using different strategies for organization. Always read your assignment instructions carefully and ask your instructor for clarification or guidance if you have any questions. The guidance provided in this video is a baseline to help get you started, but your final literature review may look a bit different from the examples we show here. At any point in your literature review project, make an appointment with us at the Writing and Communication Center. We can help you understand the requirements of your literature review project. We can help you write summaries of your sources, and we can help you with synthesizing those sources. Email us with questions at wcc@utc.edu or visit our website for more information or to book an appointment. Good luck writing, and we look forward to seeing you soon.